This episode is presented to you by NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. With NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube and YouTube TV, you can watch your favorite teams' out-of-market Sunday games, plus watch up to 4 games at once with Multiview. Don't miss the race to the playoffs. NFL Sunday Ticket is now just $39 when bundled with YouTube TV, where you get even more football. Visit youtube.com/Spotify offer to sign up now. Lowest price on YouTube TV with base plan. Rest of 2023 season. Terms and embargoes apply. No cancellations.
'Tis the season to shine with H&M. Discover the holiday collection and find fashionable pieces for your wardrobe or for under the tree. Get inspired and dazzle with this year's glam. From tuxedo styles, bow detailed pieces, impressive prints, and more. From unforgettable looks to unforgettable gifts. With fashion finds to home decor, find it all at H&M. Treat your loved ones and yourself this season. Shop in-store or at hm.com.
Reboot your credit card with Apple Card, the credit card created by Apple. It gives you unlimited daily cash back that you can now choose to grow in a high-yield savings account that's built right into the Wallet app. Apply for Apple Card now in the Wallet app on iPhone and start growing your daily cash with savings today. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility requirements. Savings accounts provided by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day. And that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
Welcome back to another episode of Keeping Current with Kansas City. I think I'm getting okay with that name now.
It's a good one.
All right. We have lots of talk about today. And today is just me, Thad Bell from the Blue Testament, Daniel Sperry from the Kansas City Star, and other places in his past history that I don't know if he wants to admit to. But
yeah, I mean, MLSsoccer.com in the past, last word on soccer in the past. When Pro Soccer USA, so I was starting to go with both MLS Soccer and Pro Soccer USA. The first article I ever wrote for Pro Soccer USA was a game story on Sporting Kansas City shredding the Houston Dynamo 4-0 in the second game of the 2020 season. And then the pandemic happened, and then they ceased operation. So I got in one game story out of an attempt to write for Pro Soccer USA. So I guess that might be the one where I'm not like 100% like, oh yes, let me put that in my list of bylines.
Well, you kind of just did. So, hey.
I did, unfortunately.
All right. So we're recording this on Thursday. I think it's Thursday. A week ago,
Thursday.
we were talking to each other at a kind of a big event.
Just kind of, yeah.
There was a groundbreaking, kind of actually two, for the Kansas City Current. Yeah. How big of a deal is this, in your opinion, Daniel?
I hate how much of everything else that happened that week, with the E60 doc, with the Sally H report. Dad and I have already ranted about this to each other. All of the issues about that to each other. I've ranted about it on other pods. At this point, it's probably a point where we'd rather someone else come in and address it than us, because someone who is not a white male meets like the demographic of quote unquote privilege, etc. So I think in light of everything that was going on that week, I wish we could really understand how momentous that day was for women's soccer, not only in the US but globally, and for women's sports in the United States. Like I think of like WNBA teams like Chicago. They don't play in the United Center. They're relegated to another arena on the other side of town that's a little bit more difficult to get to. There's no train lines that run directly to it. They do concerts there. It's a decent, smaller hockey arena, maybe 15, 18,000 people there, but it's not the United Center, right? They don't get to play there. I think the women's team in Seattle has been played at Key Arena forever, and I think the only way they ever got out of that old place in downtown Seattle, right at kind of the base of the Space Needle, was because a men's hockey team was brought to Seattle that is playing at a brand new arena that they built for that men's hockey team. I mean, it just goes on with the list of places that sure. Rain plays in a state-of-the-art facility that hosts 60,000 plus NFL games, and maybe one day could eventually host a Super Bowl if the NFL wants to go cold outdoors again. But it's not their stadium. That was fully funded, fully invested in by a family that gives pretty much everything that they feel that they can give towards the advancement of women and women's sports. And I think that is something that, in the light of all of the things that we had that were going on that week, I think maybe didn't get as much play as it should have. And I appreciate Jason Anderson, who's a reporter out of DC area, covers both DC United and Washington Spirit, and does a lot of the NWSL writing for Pro Soccer or whatever. There's a new, I'm going to butcher the website, but there's another Pro Soccer Wire, I believe is what it is. Just so you know, Tad, that there's a new source of soccer news and information in the U.S. with a few decent writers, a few decently named writers that I think people in the overall general landscape of U.S. soccer would.
But for Kansas City, they should go to thebluetestament.com.
And the Kansas City Star. Subscribe. Yeah. Anyways, okay. As we get through our little jokes back here, I appreciate Jason for bringing a light to it as well. That as much as everything else is being talked about, this is like the owners that the NWSL wants. Like, this is it. And they were at an incredible event. I know I didn't stick around long enough for the public event just because workday and general other things that had gone on throughout the day, and wild week for me. But I got to go through the initial groundbreaking and with a lot of the dignitaries and a lot of the other people that were there. Were taking their photos, as kind of the first people to break ground on the actual stadium site. And then just over, they did another groundbreaking ceremony with a stage and live music and this big old basically city block party, and it was packed over there. And some of the pictures that I saw, I know Thad can vouch for it as well. So to see in an area that's kind of not a huge area of Kansas City that people are going to flock to, for happy hour plus in Kansas City. I mean, I just think it went to show how much they are drawing in interest and in public support for what they're doing, and what the club are trying to do, but also a general understanding of how big the occasion was for folks in Kansas City. It was really cool to be at. Cool to see Chris and Angie put the shovels in the ground with their daughters. Was really cool to see all the players get a chance to get their shovels and their hard hats and see the whole squad out there of like, okay, this is what like you have wanted your entire career, and you get to be the people that help put the shovel in the dirt to help start this, what is hopefully a launch pad for investment in women's sports, women's soccer around the United States. And I applaud the Longs. I applaud Brittany Mahomes. I applaud a lot of the people that had everything to do with getting this done and making this happen and be a possibility. Because like when my daughter is old enough to realize what's going on, like she gets to dream about playing in that stadium. And it's not a dream to maybe have a stadium. It's a dream to play in a stadium that already exists and see her stars grow up in front of, because her favorite players become stars right in front of her. And I think that's an incredible opportunity that my daughter gets. And I really like that. That's where it kind of hits at the heartstrings for me, I guess. And why it's incredibly important.
Yeah, hard to get a word in edgewise there. No, just giving you crap. I was actually kind of talking about this with my daughter right before I came down for the pod. We were having dinner, and she's 18 now. She's not playing soccer. She's in college, doing lots of other magnificent things. But when she was born, the MLS existed. She grew up knowing the Wizards and then Sporting. She was 8 or 9, whatever it was, when FC Kansas City came into being, when the NWSL came into being. So she was pretty young when she knew that there was professional women's soccer in the United States, but it was in high school stadiums or college stadiums or a perfect pitch in the middle of nowhere in Swope Park. Kids that are like your daughter and other kids that are not born yet or just 2 years old or 4 years old will just know this is that the women are being treated in a way that they should be treated. I'm not going to say equal. There's lots of ways to parse that and all that type of stuff, but they have a stadium of their own. I don't know how many of these players that turned dirt over the other day will ever get to play in it, because some of them are old, some of them will not be in soccer in a year or two, but some of them will play in that stadium. And it sets, I know everybody's like says that standards and there's all these buzzwords and cliches and all that stuff, but it gives them not only their own spot, their own recognition, it gives them control. You could have them play at Sporting and it'd be a great stadium and be a good size and all these other things, but the colors would be wrong, the advertisements would not be right, they would not own the revenue from that stadium, they couldn't sell stadium naming rights, field naming rights, club naming rights, all of those things that will bring money into a team. Now, the Longs are financially well off. They can lose a bunch of money for quite a while and never even notice it. Well, they would notice it because they're really good at managing money, but it's not like they couldn't lose some money and just donate it and not worry about it, right? But in the long run, no pun intended, you want a team to be self-sustaining by the money comes in from revenue, from ads, tickets, selling players, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is a step towards that sustainability, where this team and another team and then another team, and then once you have 10, 12 teams all with their own stadiums, or at least control enough over their own stadiums that it can be a sustaining league. It's not charity anymore. It's not just throwing money away. It's a going concern. It's good soccer. It's a league that just goes. I don't know. I don't have a better words for it right at the moment. I'm sure I'll be more poetic when I'm not on air.
That's always how it goes, right? But yeah, and I think the location is incredible too. I think that's an area that, even when we were talking with the Longs before any of it happened, or before all the festivities got underway, doing some interviews for the Star and other stuff, we got to sit there and talk about, there's plans for the stadium being the green aspect of the stadium. There's plans for the pavilion that can be outside of the stadium that can potentially host watch party stuff for the World Cup. They have the park itself that they can put stuff there. They have dreams of building up the area around the stadium in commercial properties that come in, and people want to put their bar outside of the stadium, so people have a place to go to afterwards. They want to put their restaurant out there for it, to be an official game day hub for the stadium and all that kind of stuff. And there's so many aspects of it that all become self-sustaining, not just for that, but it's a a bright spot for the city. This is kind of slightly unrelated, but like I grew up in the Bay Area, in Northern California, in the Bay Area, and the San Francisco Giants, when they built I don't know if you're a baseball fan. If not, just look up AT&T Park. It's one of the most beautiful settings in all of baseball. You have the giant Bay Bridge in the background, beautiful ocean on the backside of it in the San Francisco Bay, kayakers out there waiting for home run balls to get over the wall. I mean, it's an awesome setting. But like that, and the area around that, tons of bars. They have like a pinstripes, like bowling alley kind of place over there. They've got all kinds of restaurants and vendors. And that place was a dump. It was a dump along the waterfront. It was, it was old docks, piers, marinas. It was blight in San Francisco, and all the large buildings didn't want them to put stuff up there because they were afraid it was going to cover up their view of the bay. Well, they put that up there, and all those people started investing in property around that. Now the Chase Center, for where the Golden State Warriors play, is just a stone's throw from the bridge that's on the backside of AT&T Park. That covers a little inlet that comes in with a little river and waterway that goes into San Francisco. I mean, that the whole area, that whole waterfront is entirely changed just because someone said we're going to build a destination here, and then people bought in to realize what a great destination that was. And I think that's going to be something not just for Kansas City, for the women and stuff, or not just for the women, not just for the players and stuff like that, but for the city as well, to add yet another area. You have the River Market, you have the Plaza, you have the Crossroads District, you've got Power and Light, and you got some of those areas. But now we're adding another area to that, like downtown vibe of kind of building up of successful businesses, successful storefronts that can all come along in there. And I don't know if any of you were out at the party out there, but if you got a chance to kind of stick around right where the stadium site was and turn back towards the city, it is an incredible view on the backside of the skyline that's going to loom over the stadium at night. I can't imagine how cool that's going to be at night, to have the whole sky of Kansas City lit up behind it, with the river going in the background, the Buck O'Neill Bridge, all kinds of just really cool stuff that's happening right there. That it's going to be a really awesome place to be, and it's got so many positive benefits, and you have a group of people that are privately financing it. I think that's stadiums. Everyone's frustration is like their rebel rant at the cloud is that the stadiums are being financed publicly and financed through taxpayer money and all this kind of stuff. And I know there's a little bit of taxpayer money and bonds and stuff like that going into this, but for the most part, it is, what would say, maybe at least 90%. This is entirely owner funded, right? So
yeah, it was 100%. And then when they made some upgrades too, because it was
there was going to be 10,000, and then it bumped up to 11,500, and then that's when they kind of they had to bring in some of the taxpayer money to it. But in the grand scheme of things,
it's a 10% or 15% of the overall cost, so it's not a huge amount compared to a lot of these. And again, not that I ever trust the forecast of any economist, but supposedly it could bring in $1 billion to that area over the next 2 or 3 decades. So
I mean, that's huge.
I don't know that it'll bring in $1 billion over 30 years, but if it brings in $500 million over the next 30 years, that's probably kind of well worth it for that area. And again, there's knock-on effects that are not tangible to projections. I did stick around, as much as I said I was going to leave because I hate crowds, which is weird considering I'm in crowds all the time. But I did stick around. I did watch the second groundbreaking, the ones for the fans. Then fans were given a chance to basically step into the area and get quick pictures on their own phones. And that was just like, they were like just jumping in there so fast to do that because everybody wanted to do that. There was a buzz, and it was such a contrast from the first part of the week that, again, I don't want to focus on too much right now, but just like you said earlier, the Yates report, the ESPN show, all the things that we knew about were so heavily put in front of us. The Yates report started off basically throwing it right up front to make it more impactful. But then there was that dichotomy that just 4 days later, everybody's wanting to have a good time. And it seems like that maybe that was so needed. Like, okay, you're not going to put everything behind you. There's still all these things that need to be done. There's protections that need to be done better. People need to be still punished and hung up by their toes. But it was like, okay, here's the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe we're seeing what the future will be. And that's that turning point that I don't know that anybody will ever be able to quite quantify, at least not for another 10 years.
This episode is brought to you by Google Pixel, the official fan phone of the NBA and WNBA. The new Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro are built different. How? Take the Audio Magic Eraser tool that helps block out distracting crowd noise so your play-by-play commentary sounds crystal clear. The only phone engineered by Google brings out the audio you care about so your videos sound as crisp as they look. Learn more at googlestore.com/pixelnba. Audio Magic Eraser requires Google Photos app. May not work on all audio elements.
The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right.
I'm stadium talked out at this point, but yes, yeah. Awesome event, awesome night in women's soccer history, women's sports history. Opening night will be even bigger, and I'm really looking forward to that in 2024.
Yeah, me too. All right, we got the terrible and the great out of the way. Let's put it that way for the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have a game coming up in 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is, on Sunday. The Current are away at Houston, and it's not going to be easy. What do you see is going to happen down there, man? Any predictions or?
I think it's interesting. I know you got to talk to Coach Potter yesterday. I talked to him today. Houston, even as recent as their last game against Houston feels, they're still Houston's still kind of a different team at the moment than the team that they faced there. That was Ebony Salmon's first game back with that team after her trade, and she was really dangerous in the first half and not dangerous at all in the second half. Once the Current figured out what to do with her, but I think there's other pieces. The new coach came in just after that, and I think there's some things about that team that have changed since the Current have played their 4 matches against them this season, and it's going to be an interesting wrinkle to it. I do think that the Current have handled that well throughout the season, where they've faced teams that look vastly different from one game to the next. I don't think the Current are that different from the team that beat them down in Houston the last time. You were there, I think, for that game on Mother's Day, right? Between the two teams. The Current dominated that game. Houston got a bogus penalty kick and got a late breakaway winner in that match. That was, after the Current had flooded numbers forward trying to equalize it, and they just played a very intense match against the North Carolina Courage the days before. Still just weren't quite that team in that loss. CC Kaiser, and when they're all on that team, that's a much different team than what that team was back then. So, and I think the first thing that I noticed about the Current is the fact that they get set piece goals against Houston a lot. I think that's an area for them a team that has had a coach like Lloyd who keys in on set pieces like that. I think that's really important. A lot of the goals that Houston has given up lately have been on set pieces too. I just think that's an area that the Current should look to exploit. But man, I think it's crazy that we're even talking about this being a road game, though, considering the way everything went at the end of that match against Louisville. Um, Lowe was pretty hot. I wouldn't say hot after that game, hot and angry, but I think she was a little. You could already tell that the intensity and the frustration had settled in and was getting to a point where they were ready to channel it into like, all right, we're going to do something about this. There was.
Yeah. I saw Lowe like the next day or 2 days later, whatever it was, at Sporting, and I just said something generic like, "Hey, great season," and she very much snapped at me, "We're not done yet." Okay.
Yeah. And I think there's that feeling. She said, it's better to lose now than it is in the playoffs. And I agree with that. I think this is an interesting test for them. Now they have to go do this away against a team that has never been current technically have never been in the playoffs before, as Houston Dash have not. And the Houston Dash will be hosting this match, a game that probably, well, I don't know if it would even have been between them. It probably would have been Chicago at Kansas City if the Current had drawn that game and stuck at 0-0. So maybe even a bit more difficult matchup at that point. I think I think the way that the Current have handled Houston throughout the season gives me calm about how they should do this. It was a 3-0 win in the Challenge Cup, a 2-1 win at home, I believe, in the Challenge Cup. And then a 2-1 win on the road with a goal in like the 6th minute of 10 random minutes of stoppage time down in Houston that made absolutely no sense when they were up 2-0. So I think,
and it was an own goal.
And it was an own goal, right?
Yeah. So actually, Current scored all 3 of those goals in the 2-1 win.
But yeah, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't say the Current should be like Current fans should be like, oh, we got this. Because I think there should be some concern with how things ended through the season, and how they are going into this game. Are they going to find that really cohesive, dangerous attacking form again? Really one game in the last 5 did they show that true firepower in themselves? So I'm interested to see what we get out of this team and how they start. I think the start's going to be the biggest thing for them. If they make come out even in that first 10-15 minutes or on top in that first 10-15 minutes of the match, when you really have to learn how to settle in at that point in a playoff game, in a must-win game, if you can win those first 10-15 minutes, I think you're good. And I think that's what. Well, I'll keep my point and I'll let you talk because I'm rambling at this point.
It's okay. Going back to the last game, it was a disappointment in how it ended. It was a big disappointment that Desi got the red card and should not be available for this game. They should have been able to hold on for that, at least a draw. The one thing with this team is they do seem to do things early or late. So they're going to score early or they're going to score late, or they're going to give up a goal early or they're going to give up a goal late. It just seems very much like that. Although last game in Houston, they scored in the 43rd and the 46th minute. So it was late in the half and early in the half. I guess I'm still going with my own theme there, but and then you mentioned how key the set pieces were. It seems like early in the year they were really good on set pieces, and it just seems like that trailed off a little bit throughout the season. It seemed like there was a lot of the passing combination. They wanted to do short corners or something, and they did not succeed as well as they had earlier in the year. Maybe because teams were keying off that because they don't have a lot of height on the team, a lot of big go for headers kind of people since Mewis has been out the entire year. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things they lack there. Claire has a little bit of height. I'm just not sure how much she has the leaps, but
yeah. I think what they were successful on set pieces wasn't necessarily from the initial ball.
No,
it was always that second action. And I think they haven't been able to teams have really keyed in on that and made sure that the Current don't get that second bounce to the ball or
even the first.
Or even the first, yeah, and that has been something that's made it more easy for teams to cover, I guess. but yeah, I don't know, where things have totally gone wrong necessarily for them in that. Obviously, once you get film on what teams are doing, you try and do something different. But um, I, I think this. I feel like they haven't really been losing set pieces, so much in games either, which I think also goes part of the coaching, and maybe they don't score as long as they're not conceding on them, and I think that's an area where okay, then I think they'll be good because they don't really concede very much from they don't concede much from set pieces. So then if they can dominate the run of play themselves, maybe a little bit more possession, a little bit more patience in the final third, and making things open up, then maybe we'll see the return of that really dominant KC Current squad that we've come to see and come to expect. I think at times too, when we saw that in the summer, a certain person, Alex Luera, was playing as the number 6. For you with Desi out, is she the logical drop in for Desi in the number 6 spot?
Yeah, and I don't want to. I want to say this in the very best way possible. I'm not unhappy with that in any way, shape, or form. Desi has her immense amount of strengths that she carries into the team, and Loera has a little bit of Desi, but a little bit better passing, a little bit better in that regard, a little more energy at times. Although it would be hard to rule out wanting Des in there for closing out a game, but
Correct. And I think too, I just think of the passing display. She's really good at playing players into space, and taking that mental picture of the field and knowing which ball needs to get played over the top, which through ball needs to get made, which pass needs to get made. And I think that's just going to be part of her evolution as a player. And I see a lot of, well, at the time, Julie Johnston, but Julie Ertz in her, and the fact that she can play center back, but can also be a really physical, a demanding physical presence, but a really good ball distributing physical presence as a 6 at times. And we've talked and gushed about her ceiling before on this pod, so I don't think our belief in her abilities is any secret. I tried to ask Potter that a little bit. Do you maybe is this even a place where you can put Chloe in, who's never played a minute in the league this year? That's difficult, but she's playing for Australia right now, is getting minutes during the international break.
Yeah.
So that's a question. Okay, is she healthy? Can she play? And I think, the talk about trust of players and all that stuff is good, but I think the player that's most trusted in that instance is going to be Loera for me. And then what happens there is, who do you put on the back line? I think with Ebony Salmon speed, you got to put Addison Merrick in there as well.
Yeah,
the third center back with Ball and Edmonds.
Yeah, and I think usually when the Current have been at their worst is when E-Ball has not been at her best. So as long as she's doing well with Loera in front of her, I'm not too worried about it being Addison or even somebody else out to the side there. The speaking of, you mentioned like the potential for Loera, Mace has gotten starts in both the national team games. That one was a loss that was okay. It was England at their best in Wembley, and a controversial VAR call and all that type of stuff for a 2-1 loss. That's really not a big deal. The loss in Spain, though, to the minus 15 best players of Spain team, that was a lot more concerning. And I don't feel like Mace looked even good in that game.
I didn't get a chance to watch the game against Spain, so I'll have to take your word for it.
I mean, not that she was not the worst one on the field, don't get me, and that's in no way, shape, or form what I'm saying. It's just nobody looked really good in that game. There's things that she did going forward, but then failed, but which left it open coming back the other way. So with Current, she would have probably been fine because people knew to cover, but with the national team, it didn't go quite as well. All right. Anything else we need to chat about? Want to do predictions?
Prediction.
I hate
I
that.
don't like predictions here. Playoffs is hard.
Every game is hard.
Do
You're
you feel
looking.
comfortable going first? I'm thinking. I'm in my contemplative state.
And by the way, remind me to tell a small story about Luera when the playoffs are done.
Okay.
I'm going to wait till after that because, yeah, I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later. So I hate to do this to the listeners, but I'll tell a story later. I'm going to go with a current win in this one. I think it's doable. It's by far not a guarantee or, a blowout, but it's probably a 2-1 win or 3-2 win.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think a Casey current win on this one. Excuse me. I don't know I don't know a spot where I feel like the Dynamo have an advantage in either their front line, their midfield, or their back line.
The dash.
Did I say Dynamo? I'm sorry. Gosh.
No, it's easy.
Two
man.
names
It's
with these. Stinking. Anyways, I don't think that the dash. I don't know that I see them having an advantage. Do I see Casey having an advantage in those position groups? Not necessarily, but I think the way that the Current have played, how cohesive they've been, goes to show for who they are and how good they. This is a team that was literally a let 80 France grab the ball in the air instead of heading it out, away from being the 3 seed and hosting a playoff game. There is not much of a seeding gulf between these two teams in terms of ability or quality. I'll say a 2-1 Current win, done in normal time. I think that's where I feel comfortable there. Current really don't score more than 2 goals very often. Only a couple times this year have they scored 3. So two feels safe, 2 feels good. I'll say 2-1 win.
A Lola Bonta PK and a Kristen Hamilton banger. How about that?
Sure. Men for it.
Yeah, me too. All right. I think that's all we're going to do for tonight. Thanks everybody for listening. Subscribe, follow, like, whatever. And we'll do one next week after the playoff match, and we'll see how that goes. We're out.